One of the most common ways people lose ground in recovery isn't emotional weakness, it's stress. When stress builds, your nervous system shifts into survival mode and self-control quietly drops. In that state, the brain isn't asking what's best for you in the long term, it's asking what will make this feeling stop right now. That's why stress is such a powerful setup for relapse, not because you don't care, but because your system is overloaded. If that's ever happened to you, this isn't a failure, it's biology. In this video, I want to explain how stress actually undermines self-control and what helps in that moment, not in theory, but in real life. I'm Dan, and this is Mindcare Compass. Making unhealthy choices when we are experiencing high stress is actually a pretty universal reaction, right? Who among us hasn't reached for a donut or an extra drink in response to feeling overwhelmed? I know this isn't good for me, but in this moment, I don't care. And I might even tell myself I need this cigarette or hour of gambling in order to make it through a period of feeling frazzled. An easy way to understand the connection between stress and relapse is through what's known as the window of tolerance. Now, the concept comes from psychiatrist Dan Siegel's work in interpersonal neurobiology, where he described a window of tolerance for nervous system regulation, and it looks like this. When we are cruising along through life and things are normal, we are able to think clearly and make good decisions. We may at times feel slightly anxious, like over some difficult job to do at work, or a little down because we didn't get a raise or are feeling lonely. No big deal. But when life hits us with disasters like the death of a loved one, getting fired, or ending a relationship, that pushes a person out of the range of normal events into a state called hyperarousal. Now, that's just a fancy term for the fight or flight mechanism when you feel like running away to escape the situation. So, how does this state lead to relapse? Well, another way to describe this process is to say that when I'm in the window of tolerance, I'm making use of my thinking brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. When I'm pushed outside of that window, my brain shifts to survival mode, which takes place mainly in the amygdala. Here's the key. Thinking brain considers the long-term consequences of my behavior, so I can avoid the unhealthy choice because I'm taking into account what that's going to do to me in the long run. So I avoid the donut because I don't want to gain weight, or decide not to have a drink because I don't want a DUI. When I shift into survival brain, I no longer care about the future. I just want to escape the situation right now. So I turn to the unhealthy behavior that has worked for me in the past, whether that's gambling, drinking, smoking, or whatever. So that's how it works, but what do we do about it? How do you get back to being inside that window? Or another way to say this is, how do I turn on thinking brain and get out of survival mode? Well, the first suggestion is a bit paradoxical sounding, but I believe it's useful to take a moment and thank the addictive behavior for helping me in the first place. That might sound kind of weird, but I like to call addictive behaviors destructive survival mechanisms. So yes, maybe smoking helped me get through college by providing the stimulant to stay up late studying. But now I'm out of college and I don't really need it anymore. It was a coping mechanism, which means it helped me to survive a tough time, and survival is better than not surviving. But it's a destructive survival mechanism, meaning that there are long-term negative consequences of that behavior. So now I want to switch to a constructive survival mechanism instead. You might visualize this as walking down a trail with a friend, but then coming to a fork where my path goes to the right and his is to the left. He will try to talk me into staying with him and going his way for the companionship. But that's not the correct path for me to be on, so I can say thanks for the company, but now I'm going in this direction. This isn't about justifying the behavior or minimizing the damage. It's about understanding why it existed in the first place so you can let go of it without shame. Sometimes people quit smoking or drinking, and it almost feels like they're abandoning or betraying an old friend. So that's why I think it's useful to imagine that behavior not as an enemy, but a friend who has gone a different direction in life. So what are constructive ways of managing stress? Well, the good news here is there's a million of them. And finding what works for you just takes the willingness to explore different options and some creativity to try new things. Meditation is certainly one of the best tools available, and if you want to learn how to do that, check out this video here. Journaling can also be a great tool. Just imagine venting about a stressful situation to a friend who was a really good listener, and then writing down everything you would say to that friend. Exercise is also a wonderful means of managing stress. Not only do you feel good about accomplishing the workout, but you also get the burst of endorphins that help you feel better about life generally. There's yoga, going for walks in the woods, eating healthier food, limiting screen time. There are many, many options, so go ahead and play around, try different things to find the activities that are good outlets for you personally. And here I'll ask that you share what does work for you in the comments so other people can try them too. One aspect of stress management that is often overlooked is not just having good outlets, but also considering the sources of stress and thinking about what life changes you could make to reduce the inflow of stress. So that might mean leaving an unhealthy relationship or changing careers. Big things that might seem insurmountable at first, but if you open your mind to the possibilities, then you will often begin to see alternative paths that are available. Bottom line, avoiding unhealthy behaviors is kind of like driving down a road that's filled with potholes, and it helps to know where the potholes are in order to avoid them. Stress is certainly the biggest pothole to avoid by planning ahead. That means developing ways for how you are going to manage stress before you attempt quitting the destructive coping mechanism. But it's not the only trigger for relapse, and I'm going to be talking about the two other major potholes, which are anger and boredom, and how to avoid them in future videos, so watch for those. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you next time. Take care.